Hello, everyone. We're talking again. Watch out. This is Luann Morris.
Hi,
I'm
everyone.
Deborah Rose. It says so on the bottom of my screen. Let me tell you why we're doing this, because we want to. um, so Luann and I are part of a conspiracy to entertain people with a company called Miles of Smiles Events and Entertainment. And she and I are both old, and we feel like we have something to say sometimes. And well, we're older than a lot of people. Is that better?
Yeah.
Older.
My
And
body is much older. My
and
experiences are older.
and I spent a lot of time straightening Luann out, and I just figured that I give her all these words of wisdom, and why waste it just one time? I'll record it, and I just, it'll be there for everyone to listen to if they need to. No, I'm just kidding, but I'm not. And
I am, but I'm not.
I am, but I'm not. And it's just we're not rich, but I think we're just as entertaining as most of these reality shows sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, sometimes my life is feeling a little like a reality show.
Yeah,
Too
so
much
let me
drama.
let me tell you about Luann. Luann's recently divorced. She's a nurse, retired nurse. She's an herbalist. She's a pain in my ass sometimes. I love her dearly, which is saying a lot because I don't like people. I love the concept of humanity. It's just humans I can't stand. That's my slogan.
Good Lord.
I'm married, hard to believe because I'm really hard to put up with. Been married 5 times, been widowed, was married to a gay man once. It was not gay. It was hard. It was real hard. Have 2 children. My husband I have now, we've been together 26, 27 years, somewhere around there. He's 12 years younger than me. And Luann's been in a funk lately, and I woke up in a funk today. So we're going to funk it out today. We're going to funk it out. So Luann had a good point she wanted to make. So I'm going to let her take over while I drink some coffee.
Well, sometimes you see posts on Facebook that you think, that really resonates with me, or why don't we do that anymore? And of course, most of them, probably 90% of them, you're rolling your eyes and going, really? But this one kind of, years ago, we were all like family. And the reason I say this is because I grew up in a small town and you knew everybody. Everyone looked out for one another. We need to go back to that. We have to do a better job at looking out for each other instead of breaking each other down. And I think that's especially true of women. This is not a competition. This is lifting each other up. I'm going to, let's see. Instead of breaking each other down. We need to be better about uplifting people. Encourage, empower, and enlighten. And that is the theme of Miles of Smiles Entertainment. That's what we want to do. Encourage, empower, and enlighten. So it's about, I don't have to like what you do, but I'm certainly going to step in and go, this is perfect for you. How can I help you? Do you need my help? Do you need to vent? Do you need to, that's what we should do to uplift each other. Deborah, I know you have an opinion.
I do. I have an opinion about everything, even if it's wrong. I don't think I grew up with that so much. I had a taste of it when I was young because we lived so close to some of my cousins and my aunts and stuff. And on my mother's side of the family, we had a lot of family. So I had kind of a taste of community and that camaraderie. But I don't remember us having an extended community of close knit neighbors and friends when we lived in Arkansas, and we certainly didn't have that when we moved to Garland, to Dallas, and stuff like that. that wasn't my experience. So I think it's here's what I think. I think a lot of people romanticize their past, especially their childhood when things get hard as adults. And that's one of the things that comes up in some of my readings when I'm doing private readings, or we're even when we're entertaining at parties, is it says that something from your past is holding you back, and it's not negative. So a lot of times when people say that they live in the past, they think they're holding on to negative memories and bad situations. But more often, I have found talking with people that they're holding on to past memories that were good and pleasant and made them feel happy and content, and they're trying to reproduce those memories.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
they've romanticized it, and they've made these memories bigger than life, and they're not the same person, and they don't have the same circumstances, and there's no way to reproduce that. So they're making themselves miserable by saying, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing this right, because you're not living up to that expectation and getting that same result. And I know that sounds like I'm being a negative Nancy. I'm really not a negative person. I think I'm a realist that can really make the
Mhm.
best out of reality. That's the way I like to look at it.
I think we all need to be a little more realistic, but the problem I see with today's society is that you want
Or
we we want to reach out and we want to help people, but people lie to us, and when you have empathy, number one, Deborah doesn't have this problem. She has empathy, but not in her number one position as far as personality goes. But I do. And so I
well,
immediately have empathy for that person.
I have empathy more than you think, but I also learned a long time ago that sometimes it's pearls before swine, and that you can hurt for people. Like if I had, $1 billion, my first instinct would be to go and take all the homeless people within a 5 mile radius of my house and go set them up in a nice little condo somewhere. That's not going to work. It just won't, because the reality is that these people have to have tools to sustain. And so many times we go in and fix people's problems, but the person is not, I don't believe in fixing them, but we're not giving them the tools they need to sustain a quality of life that we deem proper for them. That's the other thing. Maybe they don't want fixing. Maybe they
Well,
don't want the solution.
I don't
Um,
know if you remember those shows on, I don't know what it was called, where they would go in and either redo the house
all
or
those
tear
family
down,
shows.
yeah,
Yeah.
tear down what was there and put up something better because it accommodated the whole family. And those were great. It was great inspiration and it was great intention. The reality was they couldn't afford it after it was done.
Well, and so that supports what you were saying. So let me support, using the same metaphor, what I'm saying. There was a show like that called Trading Spaces, where the neighbors would switch and they would go in and redo a room over a weekend to fix it up, you know. And I remember there was this one designer, and I just thought she was the most ridiculous person I'd ever seen in my life. She went in one weekend and covered an entire room with feathers. Feathers. She didn't do those people a favor. She created so much problem. It took them, they came back later and did an interview somewhere, and it took them months to get those feathers off the wall without having to just, completely tear down the room. You know, I think I would have just lost my crap when I saw that room. Did they ask to see if anybody in the house had asthma? All I could do is look at those feathers and go, dirt, 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 dirt. Oh my
Well,
God.
yeah, because they're going to attract every little particle.
Yeah, cat hair, dog hair. Oh my God, and she did stuff like that all the time. And I was just like, why do they allow this? Why? And, you know, she wasn't helping those people. And I think that's what we do a lot of times is we go in and we do these fabulous solutions in our mind. They're fabulous, but they don't really serve a practical purpose for where the person is in their life and what they truly need. And that comes from making decisions for people instead of letting them make their own decisions.
Oh, absolutely. I read for someone recently and I told them, I said, here's what the cards say, but what do you say? You
Right.
have to use your intuition. I don't know you. You walked in here off the street. I'm doing the best I can to say what the message is from Creator. That's where I get my messages. The cards don't jump up and go, Luann, tell her this. It's Creator that tells me, look at the card. This is how it applies to her. And I said, here's what the cards are showing me. But what is your reality? What I just felt like that, yes, that's what she needed to do, but somehow it wasn't going to fit with her. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I do. That's one of the things I would always ask people when I was doing full-time coaching and stuff. And I think this is why I don't full-time coach anymore, because it is so draining. You can sit down with people, and one of the things we do is we would identify their problem, what they thought was their problem. And then we would break it down into components that they could manage, because they usually would come and regurgitate like 20 things. And we'll say, what's the primary thing that needs your focus right now that will make everything else kind of fall in line, or at least clear the path?
Mhm.
And then we would do what I call free thought, and we would come up with the most ridiculous to the most practical ideas. There was nothing that wasn't a possibility
Mhm.
as a solution. But then you have to sit down and say, with all these great ideas, what are the three that you're most willing to try?
Yes. Which ones resonate with you? What is your
Yeah,
intuition
but
telling
what
you?
do you see that you have the energy to even put the because like they go, well, this is a great idea, but I just can't do that. I
Mhm.
don't have the wherewithal to do that. I'm so tired. Well, then that's not a viable solution.
Correct.
It's in the trash. We'll put it away for now. And
You're
then this is where I would fire a lot of clients. I would hold them accountable to doing at least two of the three, trying them. And if they didn't even try, then there was no point them coming back and paying me. They were paying me to
Mhm.
be their bitch session. And that's not what I was there for. And that was not my intent. And
Your
I wasn't
intent
getting
is,
what I wanted.
yeah. You as a life coach, you're trying to help people move forward.
Trying to give my life.
And
Look,
they
look,
have
I keep saying this. I woke up in a funk today. And what's your name? Oh, Luann.
I have those moments.
Luann is
Who
an
am I?
herbalist.
Yes.
And she makes this spray for me. It's called Bitch Be Gone. So when I'm in a bad mood, I spray it all in my room. But I'm still here, so I don't think it works.
Yeah, it's just that it helps get rid of that bitchy attitude, not the bitch. Oh,
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
not in a bitchy attitude. I'm in a funk. I mean, I'm discouraged. I'm just discouraged.
I know I've had that for 2 weeks now. And it's because of you and talking to you and you saying, look, you just need to get over yourself.
I do not say that. That is not what I say, bitch.
No, no,
It's
no.
not.
But you do
I'm
say,
going to
well,
start though.
when you when you say that, how does it make you feel? And you make me think about it.
I
Dang
make you
it.
think. That's why I'm in a funk. I watched a show last night and it made me think. And I'm so discouraged. I recorded the 100th birthday party for Norman Lear. For you young people that aren't boomers and old farts and whatever else you want to call us people, Norman Lear is a wonderful, very intelligent, very creative maker of dreams. He's made many, many TV shows. Here's how you can relate to him. He was involved with The Princess Bride. I know tons of you can relate to the movie The Princess Bride. That's one of his creations. So, and they were celebrating his life. He's 100 years old. I mean, my God, you know? And he made some of the most provocative, thought producing shows in the history of television. Archie Bunker, All in the
Yeah.
Family.
Number one, I'm not sure you could do that TV show today.
Well, that's my whole point. You couldn't probably. I mean, but he had Maude. He had All in the Family, the Jeffersons, about the black family that became wealthy. The one with the woman that was the maid for Maude. What was her name? I forgot that. About her family living in the ghetto. Um, you know,
Oh yeah. What's the name of it?
had JJ Dynamite. And Janet Jackson played
Family,
the adopted daughter of the neighbor.
family something, family,
I don't know, I think it was Family. But
family.
anyway,
Uh-oh. No.
but the thing is he dealt with all these issues. See, they hit it on the head, and they took it out of the box, and they grabbed it by the throat, and they looked at issues: racism, sexism, abortion, poverty, politics, all of these things. And one of the things that they showed in some of the clips was Maude. Maude was one of my favorite shows, and I was only 11, I think, when that show came out. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with my attitude, because I just thought that show was profound. Because I never heard women's issues addressed like that in my family, and it gave me a sense of identity. But Maud was somewhere between 40 and 50 in this show. Who knows how old she was? And y'all would know her, B. Arthur, from maybe The Golden Girls, if you don't remember that show. And she got pregnant, and she's got a grown daughter and a grandson that's like around 10. And so they're dealing with the idea of whether her and her husband, Walter, should have this baby, or if she should have an abortion. And the network was having a fit over this, but they put it on TV anyway, and they were talking about all the options and things like that. And I'm
Uh,
like, oh my gosh, this was 50 years ago. 50 years ago this year, because it was in 1972, and here we are 50 years later, and we don't even have that option anymore.
yeah. It's very thought provoking. That's what Norman Lear did.
Yeah.
His comedy, his shows, they were thought provoking.
Well, that's
What?
why I'm in a fun. How can we not have that option? How can we not have that option anymore? How come Black Lives Matter is necessary 50 years later? Why is it even necessary?
Exactly.
Why are Asian people getting blamed as a race for an epidemic that affected the entire world? And I mean, my mind is just swimming today. It's just swimming with why.
And I don't feel that I can affect anything on a worldwide venue, but what I can do is be kind, supportive, while being what is that you tell me? While being in integrity with myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
so
the problem. People don't have integrity, though. We tell people be in integrity. I don't think they know what that means.
they don't know what it looks like.
No, no. And I don't think they understand what being kind means. That means everybody, not just people that you deem necessary. I've been listening to a wonderful speaker, and I had not heard this until he brought this up in one of our conversations several years ago. There's a law of judgment depending on your belief system.
Mhm.
But it makes total sense to me, and and it's kind of in line with karma. And I'm not a big proponent of what people call karma. I don't think people really understand what karma is. It's really basically the consequences of your choices.
Correct.
Unless you're treating it as a religious component. And but the law of judgment is that what you judge others for, you will do. And one of his examples is that he judged people for being fat. And he's a very slender person by statue and and stature and bone structure. And he woke up one day and realized he was 65 pounds overweight.
Surprise. I had a boss that I'm trying not to reveal who. I had a boss that would criticize me for being overweight.
That's
And
just
and this was before sexual harassment was a big thing, and this was before, and of course he was the world's best at sexual harassment. But I thought, I just don't have time to engage with you. Well, the last time I saw him, he was huge.
see, law of
And
judgment.
yeah, and so I just kind of thought, all right, there you go. That's what you criticize people, you tell them how, oh, well, you're not perfect because of this, or and he would tell me, our offices were a block from the hospital, and I went to the hospital a lot for emergencies. So I was running one day because it was that big of an emergency, and he happened to stop and let me go. And when he got into the operating room, it was like, I never seen anything that big run before.
Oh my gosh. Where is he now? I want to call him.
He's dead.
I'll call him tonight.
He had he had one too many pounds on him, and he had a heart attack.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's just a whole nother can of worms. The bullying and the awful remarks to people,
Right.
and but also going back to, like, sexual harassment not being a thing. It was always a thing. It just wasn't a thing that we could address to the higher ups. I remember that I've only had one real job in my life. I started out in high school working at a home improvement store, started out part-time, worked my way up into management and became a store manager. I was one of the few females and one of the youngest people that became a store manager. But when I started in high school, one of the managers there harassed all of the females, all of them, except for the woman that worked back in the office. And the head cashier was an older woman, and she warned us about him. And we all stuck up for each other. We would never let anyone be alone with him. And even if he would, like, tell when he was closing up the store, and he would say, well, everybody go home except, so and so, she can be the last cashier. One of us would always stay with the last cashier and not leave. And he was harmless in the sense that I don't think that any of us ever thought that he would rape us or anything like that, but he always made horrible, inappropriate remarks, and he would graze his hand across our breast at times and things, and slap us on the fanny and stuff like that. And finally, one day I had enough. Imagine that.
Imagine.
And I told him, I said, if you touch me one more time, I won't tell a soul. But you're going to have to explain to your wife why your dick is tied up in a knot. He never touched me again.
Well, and it's just crazy. And I'm sure his wife, one time we were all at lunch, and she was having lunch with us, and we were
Was she
talking.
thin? Was she thin?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were at lunch, and I don't remember what the circumstances was, where we were talking and laughing, and he came to the door and went, if one of you ladies would blah, 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 I think lunchtime is over. And his wife turned and looked at him and went, I don't see an anchor hanging off your ass. You can do it.
That's why he was mean to y'all, because he didn't run his house.
No,
And he took it out at work. Yeah.
no. Because we were all like,
Yeah. We used to call that little dick syndrome. Now we're more politically correct and we just call it little man syndrome, I guess.
I don't know. I was thinking asshole syndrome.
I've said dick now 3 times in this.
Well, let me tell you what I've discovered. You and I, since we've
Uh-oh.
started breaking bread with the spirit, are cussing less.
Oh yeah. I've had a lot of people comment on that and compliment me on it. And it kind of makes me sad, I have to admit.
Well,
One, that I was known for my cussing, and two, that it makes that big of a difference. To me, again, that falls into that reason why I'm in a funk. We put too much importance on things that aren't important.
well, and I did not realize, and I suppose maybe this is where where men come from or used to about their uh snide comments, which are now sexual harassment.
To-
I did not realize how much me cussing affected other people and how it irritated them and
yeah,
how
I
it
didn't
made them
either.
uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
didn't either.
everybody cusses, right?
Well, in my world, but I worked in every industry I've been in has been predominantly men. I was always
Mhm.
the lone female or one of two or three females. And when you're 19 years old and you're running a staff of 45 people and two-thirds of them are men over their 40s, that's where I learned to cuss
Mhm.
because that got their attention and they paid attention to what I had to say because they couldn't figure out how I got to be their boss. I don't
Well,
know how I got to be their boss. Honestly,
uh, it's like being a part of the Marine Corps. That's just a part of it. And if you happen to be a woman, so what?
yeah. And like, I've been a private investigator for so many years. And, it's only been recently that the men in the industry have stopped calling me things like little gal, you know, things like that. And the thing that really used to irritate the crap out of me was that a lot of the men, even though they were 20 and 30 years older than me, they were like retired police officers, retired military, and they were working private investigations to enhance their income. They weren't making a living from it. It was
Right.
an enhancement. I was making a living from it. I was so in my mind, and maybe this is not the right way to look at it, but this way I look at it, I was more successful at it than they were because it was my
Because
source of income.
put food on the table and a roof over your
Yeah. And I always hated them saying things like, well, they're look at little lady and little gal and blah, 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 and stuff like that. So I just, I think I developed cussing and other ways of talking as a defense mechanism.
hmm
Plus, I like the shock value. I do like the shock value. But now
Yeah.
I find out my life is shocking enough for people. And if I just talk about my life, they're shocked enough and I
Mhm.
don't need the enhancements. So, you know, it is what it is. I have ADD real bad today.
But I think that I want to go back to us being kind to one another. I also grew up in a very close-knit church community, and we were always doing for each other. So maybe that's where I get more of the community than the fact that I grew up in a small town. Let me
Well,
tell
how small was your town? I think we need to
1,200
clarify.
people, 1,200 people,
Well, that's tiny.
1,200 people. Yes.
Our
And
graduating class from high school is almost 900 people.
my graduating class was 35.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Uh,
That's tiny.
yeah, it's tiny. You know everybody's business. But uh, when I went to the grocery store with my mother-in-law, and I know that this is just a small act, but it was something I felt like was kind, considerate, and something you should do without even thinking about it. And I do it without thinking about it. It's just very, very tiny. But I put my groceries on the conveyor and I take the little divider stick and put it on the left side so the next person can put their stuff up there.
That's just common sense so you don't get your groceries mixed up.
It's something small. Well, the other person is going to have to lean over, they're going to have to excuse me, they're going to have to get in my face to get the little divider. And so I'm thinking, you know, let's just pick it up. It's right here in front of us and let's just put it there. And I do it without thinking, because you're right. Yes, it's common sense. I don't want her stuff over here. But the other thing is, then that person has to go through a lot of rigmarole to get the divider and put it down. So to me, to keep that person out of my space, I'm trying to do an act of kindness. It's just very, very small, but that's okay. It's still an
Well,
act of kindness.
the irony is that most good etiquette rules and good manners are based upon common sense to make things
Yes.
easier on the group,
Mhm.
on the whole, on the community, not to
Right.
make it harder, but so that everybody knows what's expected of them. There's a flow and continuity, and everybody can feel comfortable because they know what to expect. When we throw all the etiquette and rules and manners out the door, nobody knows what to expect, and nobody gets what they expect. And that's where I think a lot of these anger issues
Mhm.
and disgruntlement and all that comes from. So all the things that we thought were stupid, I'm sorry, as teenagers, you know, it served a purpose.
Correct.
It gave us a quality of life.
Well, and in the church, my grandmother, was in every, well, because she was one of the founders of the church. And so I went to all the teas, I was there with her. She taught me etiquette. She taught me, and that was when you wore white gloves and carried your purse and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And she taught me uh, more of a, she taught me the Christian attitude by walking the walk. And I think that probably that was more influential in my childhood than in the future, to be kind to someone and give them support. But once they are not kind to you, and then it's time to let that go. There has to be a give and take in this world. And when someone is constantly berating or belittling you for being kind, it's time to cut loose.
Well, I'm real frank with people on that kind of issue. I'll just say, look, you may not be aware, but this is what I hear. And am I important enough to you that you want me around?
Mhm.
And if I am, then that's come to an agreement about certain things. And here's the thing that I find fascinating. A lot of times when you try to bring up issues with people about how you want to change your interaction, they will immediately attack you. Well, you do this, and you. And my response is, you know what? You may be right, you may be wrong, but we're not talking about me right now. And if I do something that you find offensive or that you would like to address with me, you can bring that up in another conversation. This conversation I initiated, and this is all we're going to focus on. And if it's not important enough for you to focus on this for us to come to a resolution, I have my answer.
Mhm.
But I don't know,
Well,
people are afraid. I don't know what they're afraid of. I guess rejection.
yes, but
Um,
Deborah, that's where I fail. I don't communicate my boundaries.
See, I don't
I
even think of
don't,
them as boundaries. I think of them as standards. I think the boundaries thing gets overworked
maybe.
and and that makes it underutilized. It's just standards. I have a quality, a standard of relationship I expect.
Mhm.
And if you want to be my friend, that looks like this. If we're going to hang out and be acquaintances, that looks like this. And you know what? Really, I don't give a shit what you do. Um, I'm in a funk today. I'm not on my best behavior. Um, so I will tolerate a lot of things because I'm not emotionally invested.
Right. Because you're not all in, you're just being kind and
Yeah.
having a conversation. And I think friendship is kind of like I'm all in, whether it's rocky or smooth or
I tell
But
people my friendships are like a marriage, except there's no sex. So if I say you're my friend, you're going to get the same commitment for me that I give to my husband, or I give to my children, or whatever. You're
and I think that's true. That's why my dad always told me the number of true friends you have, you can count on one hand, and you're not going to use all those fingers.
Exactly. I mean, and frankly, if you're all in, you won't have the energy to have more relationships than that. But
No.
here's what I figured out as I got older. When my friends started dying, I was like, dang. And so I had three friends die in a less than 2 year period. And all of a sudden I found myself kind of friendless because my very intense friendships were all gone. And so, then you stumble into my life. I'm like, oh, here's one.
And what's so funny is I think that when you, like when we were first introduced to each other, there was no concept about whether we were going to be friends or not. There
No,
was
we
a,
didn't even really meet. We were just like we are right now.
right.
So I was doing, just to give the people a background, I was doing this thing called Spiritual Neighborhood Network. And because the pandemic had just started, we couldn't go anywhere, and I was bored out of my gourd. And so myself and another woman were doing interviews with holistic healers of all types of modalities. And then we'd have this thing called Tipsy Tuesday where I would drink and we would just talk about crap like we're doing right now. And we needed a third person. So she brought Luann on. And so, I mean, it was months before we met in person.
But I actually said to her, I want to do this. I want
Yeah.
to be involved in these conversations.
Yeah. And it was fun. And I don't know. Here's what I have found about all of my relationships that are of importance to me. I cannot recall how they started. They just became.
Right. Yeah, it's an organic thing.
Yeah. And the only one I can really recall how it started is I was really good friends for years for a woman, well, that was my husband's ex-girlfriend. And it was really ironic. We were friends, and then they broke up, and she thought I might have been a part of the breakup. So then we weren't friends. And then when she found out I wasn't part of the breakup, then we became friends again. And then we were friends until she passed. And she was a difficult woman, but I just loved her. And again, it was about standard of relationship. When she would go into a certain modality frame of mind and behave a certain way, I'm like, okay, we're done for the day. I love you, but go home, you know?
Right. Well, um, it's difficult, and it's difficult to I think it's difficult for us nowadays to really stretch out and be kind to strangers, because we don't want to be stepped on, pooped on, pushed on. Um, we want to feel like our kindness makes a difference.
Well, the other side of that coin, though, is that I like being kind to people that I know I don't have to see on a regular basis. It's easier, like Scott and I have adopted this homeless man in our area. I just love him, and we give him things and we check on him. And I hadn't seen him for a while, and I went looking for him to make sure he was okay. Um, and I don't know, there's something about him that um, when he sees me, his little face lights up, and he looks human again.
I had this occur to me when I worked at Richland College. On the way home or to lunch, there was young man was standing on the corner with his little son. Any money helps. He's standing there. The wind is blowing. I think it's like 50 degrees, and I'm thinking, holy, he's not wearing. I said, honey, what are you doing standing on the corner in your shorts?
Hmm.
He reminded me of my son. He said, well, I just came from Oklahoma and I reconnected with my mom and we're homeless. I went and bought him sweatpants, um, a hooded jacket, socks, underwear, and came right back around and said, here, you just make that connect. And he goes, oh, you don't have to do that. I said, yes, I do. This is, I'm doing this for me because I don't want you cold.
Yeah.
You may be able to tolerate it, but I can't.
And there's something to be said about that. I mean, some people have told me that they think other people, and I kind of felt like they were pointing a finger at me in this conversation as well, that people are kind out of guilt. And I think there may be some truth to that. We feel
Yeah.
guilty that we have so much and others have so little. And with all the friggin' stress that we have and worries of rent and mortgages and stuff, we're still in the top 10% of wealth in the whole world.
Hmm.
And when I think of that, I feel foolish.
Well,
I
and
do.
when I would go to the store, I would collect things like wet wipes and food that didn't need to be refrigerated and
Yeah.
something high in protein. And I always once a week, I did that and gave it to either him or his mother. Now, I think the funny thing is when I talked to the mother, she had no clue about resources. So I wrote down on a piece of paper all the resources I found on the internet to help someone in their position. And they found an apartment through these resources. Well, that made me feel better than anything, that they were able to access those resources and get a roof over their head.
Yeah, they're not readily accessible to people, and even if you Google, you don't find resources easily.
Mm-mm.
That's one of the things that with my nonprofit, the Council of Families, that we always had a resources of mental health um, things that people could access. And oh my God, that's what we're going to talk about next because I'm seeing a trend start that is terrifying. We'll talk about that on our next recording, but.
Terrifying. I don't need
Um,
terrifying.
what?
Well, the point is,
Dog is staring at me.
yeah,
She's freaking.
if you see someone who's homeless, don't look at them and say, go get help. Uh, give them the information where they can find help. They don't Google. I mean, these two had phones to communicate with each other, but they didn't have the internet. They didn't have, they just had basic phones to call each other.
Well, and there's so many stories out there. Scott and I, I don't know. Maybe we're just weird. I don't know. But we talk to these people, and when the weather gets cold, we'll go and take blankets because there's a lot of people not far from us that camp out and things. And people on next door complain about it and how it's awful for the um, property values and all this crap. And it just it annoys me to
What
read all
about
that.
human values?
Yeah, and Garland just built a dog park, and it's a lovely dog park. My Gemma loves going to the dog park. I'll tell you that because she needs to have area where she can roam at times. But the whole time they were building that, all I could do was think, why can't they put in concrete slabs or wood slabs and have some outdoor showers and use this area where they can put up some little tents and yurts and we give people, because it's right there on the bus stop. It's less than half a mile from downtown Garland where there's a lot of resources in that area and things like that. And why can't we give them a safe place to camp? So they're not camping out on the train tracks and under the bridges and
Mhm.
and dying, because they jumped out in front of a car. And so and there's a lot of different types of homeless. There's people that just became homeless, you know. And then there's people that, like there's this one lady that I talked to. She's been homeless for 27 years,
Wow.
longer than Scott and I've been married. And it happened because she went to jail on a felony. When she came out, she had difficulty finding a job. She has some mental illness issues, it's obvious. And she had a drug addiction. Okay. But when they turned her out of prison, she still had all those issues. Plus, now she
Nobody.
can't get a job because most people won't hire convicted felons. And she's been living on the streets for 27 years. Now, this woman has some resources to be able to survive that long.
Well, and a lot of times I see these older women with grocery baskets, and I said, except for the grace of God, there go I,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it could happen.
On
And
a
I
hat, it can.
and I have been homeless. Thank God, it only was a short period of time with 2 kids and a husband. But, some situations happen, and unless you can find your resources to find your way back. And I think that we as human beings need to make sure that someone who's homeless, who there are people that just don't want they don't want to be confined. I mean, they do that on purpose. They
They're
are
kind of
homeless.
like feral cats.
They are homeless by choice.
Yeah.
So, but there are some people that, like you said, if I don't know where I saw it or read it, because I remember seeing pictures of it. They were just little huts that had a bed, a sink, a composting toilet, a hot plate, a little refrigerator. And then there was a central area where you could go and bathe or shower and find resources. But you had to, you had to have some sort of job to, even if it was just making $5 a day, you still were able to give something back, or you helped clean up, or you helped settle other people. But this is a start for people who don't want to be homeless. And I'm with you. It could not have cost more than the dog park.
No, because they have everything there. They have water fountains and all that for the dogs and things like that. And I was homeless too. I have a really bizarre story about that. It was a very short period of time, praise God,
Mhm,
but it taught me how fleeting all of this is.
mhm.
You can see behind me. This is my office at the house, and it's a nice office. It's a garage conversion. This used to be a garage. It's now my office, but this could all go away, all of it.
In a
And
heartbeat.
yeah, and so I don't know. I woke up in a funk. I'm going back to where we were. I woke up in a funk because it seems like we have not only stalled, that we have gone 100 steps backwards since 1972 in the way that we perceive people and treat them, and our attitudes about individuality and common decency.
Well, we're still having the same issue. We're having the same issue about abortion and choices. We're having the same issues about, I mean, how can we have moved forward? I think that that's where Norman Lear came in. He addressed a lot of issues with the Jeffersons and that other Mama's Family.
No, that was Carol Burnett.
Okay.
That was
Anywho,
just comedy.
with the
They,
other
they
show,
didn't get very political.
no, they didn't. They were just funny. But uh, anywho, he addressed a lot of things that were part of everyday life. And
Yeah, he did. He did. So I guess it's time for to wrap up today. We missed last week, in case you didn't notice. Well,
sorry, it was crazy. We missed the Saturday because of uh, illness. I mean, Monday because of illness, and then we never could fit it back in to
no,
wait.
no. So, but we try to do these every Monday. If you have anything that you want us to talk about, we just love to know that, because it means somebody's listening.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, it's just our opinion, but we can also bring in, here's what I found, and here's what it says. I mean, I can
You can
Google
even
it.
be a guest on the show if you call us or email us.
Yeah, if
You
you
know,
really want to.
I put a poll up on one of our podcasts. I think I'm gonna start putting a poll up. When I upload it to Anchor, you can put a
Uh-huh.
poll, ask
Mhm.
certain questions. So see if that doesn't stir some conversation.
Well, it's not like I hope that by having these conversations, we affect our small group, and then it becomes a ripple effect. Then the person that we affected is able to affect someone else, is able to affect someone else.
like the shampoo commercial, and then she told two people, and she told
Uh-huh.
two,
Uh-huh.
and
uh-huh.
so on, and so
And
on.
so on and so on.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times we don't practice kindness and consideration because we have fear. So,
Yeah, it takes a lot of, and you know what? And that's a decision. It's not something that just happens organically for a lot of people. It's a decision because there's a lot of times that people just infuriate me, and I'm here to tell you that physically I can enforce anything I say, and I've got a tongue like a sword when I'm pissed.
yeah,
And it's a decision not to do that.
right.
And and it's not that I don't take things personally. I get my feelings hurt. I'm human. I know that's hard to believe,
And
but I
so if
do.
yeah, but if somebody's feeling very passionate about a subject and they just need to be heard, then we could help them out.
Yeah, we'll listen. We may not agree with you, but we'll listen.
Yeah, don't expect us to agree. Expect us to be open-minded enough to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's all about your perspective and your experiences. So I'll say this and then we'll close. So one of the things that was so foreign to me in 1972 was watching the Jeffersons. I had never known a black family to be affluent. And that was
Yeah.
mind breaking, not opening, mind breaking for me because I was raised in a very negative racial environment. I'll just say that. And um, but that's a whole nother story. So, you know,
That is another story.
things to generate thought are so
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, that is.
But, when you're exposed to it, think about it. Don't just say that's wrong. Think about it,
Yeah, how does it affect you? How do you feel about it?
you know?
Do you feel strong enough about it to make a difference in your small circle? Because
And and let me tell you something right now. When you say, okay, boomer, I'm not insulted.
yeah.
I don't know why. I'm just glad you're not calling me old lady or old bitch or whatever,
Oh my God, you're old.
Yeah. So call me boomer. I don't care because I'm going to tell you what, I'm lucky to be here and I'm glad to be here. So it is what it is.
Yep. Every day above ground's a good day.
All right. I got to go deal with my ADHD symptoms today. I'm having trouble sitting still and I got to sit still later today for a long time.
Okay,
So
have fun.
you have fun. I'll talk to all y'all later. We'll see y'all
Oh,
next week.
y'all, bye.
Bye.